Welcome to Stories with Soul. I am your host, Jamie Ice, musician turned entrepreneur and co-founder of 6th Ave Homes and 6th Ave Storytelling. Over the past 10 years, I have launched multiple successful businesses and have become obsessed with all things entrepreneurship and marketing. I've been on a personal quest to unpack what it takes to make and grow a great brand. One thing that I've discovered is that stories are powerful and that storytelling has the power to set a brand apart. Join me as I dive into the stories of the heavy-hitting leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, and business owners in our community to hear their biggest wins, greatest losses, and their best business secrets. There's a story behind every great brand. Welcome to Stories with Soul. Stories with Soul is brought to you by my company, 6th Ave Storytelling. In 2020, we launched a marketing company on a mission to encourage entrepreneurship and make starting and growing a small business easier than ever before. Since then, we have helped hundreds of small businesses and entrepreneurs grow their brands by giving them the tools, resources, strategy, and support they need to craft and share their stories. If you are thinking about launching and growing your own brand, schedule a meetup with me today. I would love to talk to you. Head over to 6thAvestorytelling.com and let me show you how the storytelling approach can transform your marketing strategy. This episode is sponsored in part by Pre-Kindle, the platform designed to empower event creators to develop the best experiences possible for their communities. Did you know that Pre-Kindle was actually founded in DFW and is still headquarters in Dallas? Well, now you do. We love local businesses, and Pre-Kindle is one of the best. With a best-in-class platform of features, no long-term contracts, low service fees, responsive mobile-friendly event pages, and friendly and attentive support, Pre-Kindle is my personal favorite ticketing and marketing platform for any event. Anytime I'm planning something with my band, Green River Ordinance, Pre-Kindle is our go-to platform to use. With an impressive roster of event creators, venues, and entertainment destinations across the nation, Pre-Kindle is hands down the best. In DFW alone, they've partnered with incredible spaces like the Granada Theater, Panther Island Pavilion, the Kessler, Will Rogers Coliseum, the Fort Worth Modern, Tulips, Risley Theater, and more. If you have been to an event or venue in DFW, I promise you have likely been using Pre-Kindle and you didn't even know it. Beyond ticketing, Pre-Kindle also helps automatically promote your event. With over 500,000 subscribers in North Texas and partnerships with event discovery sites like Bands in Town, Spotify, Google, they're set up to also help you spread the word. So go to prekindle.com, that's PREKINDLE.com, and click Get Started to begin using the platform. They are on a mission to bring your event to life. Welcome to Stories with Soul. I am your host, Jamie Ice. I'm joined by my co-host.
Oh, Jimmy Williams. I thought we were introducing here.
We're about to introduce. Yeah. And today we have, a really, really neat, special, cool, exciting guest, Pam Minick. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so in the intro, I always kind of give like the highlight reel. These are things they've done. And I don't normally read the bio. I ask for the bio. But your bio is so good and kind of so crazy. I'm going to read the whole thing. And I do it because I kind of want to say it in front of you because people always feel a little awkward because I'm reading.
And then I'll say that needs to be edited.
Yeah. But okay, I'm going to read this. So if you don't know who Pam Minick is, you're about to. And you probably do if you're from Fort Worth. But she was named Miss Rodeo when she was 19 years old, which propelled Pam into a lifetime of marketing, broadcasting, and community service. She's one of the most recognized women in the equine world. Did I say that right? Equine world. Gosh, I'm already messing this up. Earning her spots in the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame, the National Cowboy Hall of Fame, the Texas Cowboy Hall of Fame, and the Texas Rodeo Cowboy Hall of Fame. Pam has hosted more than 1,000 television shows, which is crazy, on ESPN, TNN, NBC, CBS, the Outdoor Network, RFD TV, and the Cowboy Channel. She is currently the host of The American Rancher, a series dedicated to the cattle industry, and Gentle Giants, focusing on draft breeds. As a competitor, Pam is a former world championship breakaway calf roper and 16 times finalist in team roping. Also crazy numbers. In 2020, Pam turned her focus to the AQHA, American Quarter Horse Association.
Yeah, good job.
Versatility events and won the Reserve World Champion at the AQHA World Championship show.
Which was crazy.
I don't even know what this means, so I'm going to ask you about this.
Okay.
And then you followed it up in 2022. You were the reserve championship at the Versatility Ranch Horse Show. We're going to unpack that.
Yes.
But for more than 3 decades, she has also served the Fort Worth community as a tireless supporter of the Fort Worth Stockyards. She recently retired, I think for the second time.
Yes.
After 30 years as the marketing director of Billy Bob's, where she and her husband Billy are co-owners. She created most of Billy Bob's most famous advertising campaigns, for which she received the Dateline Award from the American Advertising Federation in 2015. Billy Bob's is kind of like how I mainly knew about you, and then there's all this other winning these world champions.
Like, how does she have time to do all that?
Plus, she's on the board of various nonprofit organizations around North Texas, including the National Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame, the Texas Cowboy Hall of Fame. She's president of the Friends of the Fort Worth Herd, which is the big herd in the stockyards with the Longhorns, the past president of Speedway Children's Charities. In 2006, the Fort Worth Business Press named Pam Great Woman of Texas and recently awarded her the Legend Award. In 2016, Pam was the first woman to receive the prestigious Western Horseman of the Year award. And in 2020, she was presented the Legacy of Rodeo Award at the National Finals Rodeo held in North Texas. Pam and Billy live on a small ranch in Argyle, Texas, with horses, cattle, donkeys, and dogs.
So now you know my story.
Woo!
See you later.
Man.
Leaving
Okay.
now.
So I again,
And that's kind of embarrassing.
but there's a lot more too, because I went on like a
okay.
Google deep dive last night. And I knew who you were mainly from Billy Bob's, like just from being in the music world and being in Fort Worth. Like everybody knows who you are. I would argue. But I don't know.
Did you know who I was, Jimmy?
Absolutely.
Oh gosh, I was like, can we stump Jimmy?
You're a Fort Worth sort of icon.
It just means you're old.
No, Bill, there's a lot of people don't know, but
Okay.
but you shaped the stockyards in a huge way, and especially as far as I'm concerned, like in the music world, just created this game changer, legendary place. But okay, so my first question, I always want how do I want to tee things up? My question is, when you're at a party and you meet someone and you're like, hey, I'm Pam, what do you say you do? This background is so nuts. Are you I'm in the rodeo business? I'm in the entertainment business. I own a music venue.
I don't know how I describe what I do, because I do, just like before we started, I was like, oh, and I edit.
Yeah, she just told us that she edits her own videos, TV shows.
But how do you describe yourself?
Oh, I'm not in the hot seat right now.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Because nothing that I do feels like a job to me.
Yeah.
Nothing that I do. And so I think that, I don't tell people. It depends on what I'm doing. Well,
but you've
where
had
the
this
conversation goes.
great, from rodeo to business. It's a TV personality.
Yeah. But if I had to pick a word to describe me, I would say cowgirl.
Cowgirl.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's who I am. Every day I get up. I was at the barn at 7:00 this morning. And if I wasn't here with you all, I would have ridden a horse today. So that's what
you
I
ride
am.
every day?
I try to ride every day. It doesn't always happen. I didn't ride this morning, and depending when I get home this evening, what happens with my life? I don't have to.
But that I would say that's probably some of the key to your success is this authenticity of you just, that's who you are. You're a cowgirl and you like horses, and that's been part of your life.
That's who I am.
When I saw this, it kind of blew my mind, and I want to clarify what it means.
You did some research.
We have a bunch of small
notes. But so talk about it's one thing. So you were the world champion breakaway calf roper.
Mhm.
When was that?
1982.
1982.
When were you born?
84.
Just wanted to put it in perspective there.
Yeah.
So, but that teased up this question, and then you were 16 times finalist.
Mhm.
But okay, here's what's crazy: is in 2020 and then in 22, you won these American Quarter Horse Association.
And that's something I'm kind of proud of.
You should
because,
explain what that even is.
So in rodeo, you're familiar with calf roping and team roping, and breakaway calf roping now is really big with women. And I'm proud that I was kind of in, maybe a pioneer in that regard. And so won my world championship for, 2022 to 40 years ago. Did not even equate that. So 40 years ago, I was a world champion breakaway calf roper. But then I've always competed in team roping. I mean, I still compete in team roping.
This episode of Stories with Soul is sponsored in part by Project 202, the leader in experience-driven software strategy, design, and development. Whether you're looking to build a new software solution, redesign your mobile app, or kick off a digital transformation initiative, Project 202's customized approach creates solutions that work for your customers. Customer experience drives engagement, and cultivating that experience requires a ton of attention and time. Project 202 is local and has 18 years of design leadership. This team is an expert in using customer-centric methods to build compelling, data-driven customer experiences. Wherever you're at in your business journey, the diverse team at Project 202 will guide you from idea to execution. Go to project202.com. That's projekt202.com and click Contact to begin winning the hearts of your customers and exceeding your business goals today. This episode is sponsored by the Fort Worth Business Press. As a Fort Worth entrepreneur and small business owner, the Business Press is my favorite source for news and updates about the entrepreneurial community in and around Fort Worth. I read their email newsletter literally every day. It's always full of insights and stories that really matter. Are you ready to be more connected? Sign up for their free newsletter at fortworthbusinesspress.com. But if you're like me and the newsletter just isn't enough, you can become an insider. With the code STORYTELLING10, all one word, you'll get a discount on the insider membership. The insiders receive exclusive access to special content, 24 issues of the Business Press delivered to your door each year, and discounts on event registrations and more. Join me and the Fort Worth Business Press in staying up to date on the people, companies, and issues that matter most to Fort Worth.
But a few years ago, my husband went with our neighbor to the Fort Worth Stock Show invitational ranch horse sale, where they sell these super nice horses that are very well trained. They use them in the ranch horse competition, but they also have, super skills. So my husband goes to this sale and come with his friend, not anticipating buying a horse, and his friend texts me. I'm at the movie with one of our granddaughters, and he texts me. He goes, "Look what Billy just bought you." And it's this cutest horse, and I'll show you a picture of him. He looks like an overgrown My Little Pony. I mean, he's got all this. He's got this he's got this Jamie hair.
Yeah.
He's got this Fabio hair, beautiful tail, and he's just the kindest horse. And he bought him for me as a rope horse. Well, I've got another friend.
Which I'm assuming that's like buying a car or something. Like he just bought a horse. He was like, wasn't planning on it.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on it.
The spirit hit him.
And he had, they have to demonstrate all the horses, and he saw that the horse had, real skill. And so, so I was roping on the horse, and my friend was over at my house, and she was watching his name is Smarty move, and she goes, Smarty would do well at this ranch horse competition. And so it just so happened. So then I saw, and then 2020 hits, and everybody's sequestered. But online, this girl had these virtual ranch riding shows. So where you video yourself and send it in and you get judged. Well, I do that. I had never been to a show before, but I do that. And I did well. The judges, you get either pluses or minuses for your maneuvers. It's kind of, I guess, like skateboarding at the Olympics. You're either a plus or a minus on your maneuver. And so you didn't have to qualify that year for the world show. So I enter the AQHA World Show.
Having never done it before.
You and Smarty.
But me and Smarty, like that. I mean, you can ride, but I had never done these. I had never been judged because in rodeo, well, the riding events are judged, but everything is time. Barrel racing is time. Breakaway roping is time. Team roping is time. So that was a whole new experience to me.
You get to slow down.
And to feel that vulnerable because, when you think you killed it and then you get a negative for the, but yeah, we went to the world show, 70 in the class, and ended up with the reserve world championship, which means we were second best in the class.
Wow.
So or like my rodeo buddies say, first loser, but.
So I'm like, but like some people have like a COVID, I'm stuck at home, I'm kind of bored, I'm going to take up.
Knitting.
Yeah.
Knitting. I took up like drinking wine, which is not but you're like when this was your sort of COVID hobby.
This was my COVID hobby.
And you went and won second place in the entire world.
Yeah.
And a thing that you have never done before.
And I just have it. It's just, it was meant to be. And I learned so much. Here I am, closer to 70 than I am to 60, and have learned more in the last 2 years showing in that discipline than I knew about riding for the first 60 years.
Did you get a trainer, or how did you?
Yeah.
Or were you just watching YouTube videos, or how
no,
did you?
Actually, the girl that was putting on the virtual shows, she adopted me.
Okay.
She was like, "You're good, but you can be so much better if you do this, this, and this." And so now she's my trainer, and I feel so snotty to say that's my trainer, but I found out through this, much like anything else, you need a different set of eyes. You need somebody to say, "Oh, your arm's doing this or your legs doing that." I mean, that it's not just fastest time wins. So it's been fun.
That's so cool. And then the 2022, you won the versatility range.
Yeah, I followed up with the same.
And this is
the same horse.
A different type of competition.
A little bit different because they do it outside, not in an arena. They do it outside in a field, jumping over trees and things like that. And so Smarty again rose to the occasion.
Man, you're like, Billy, thank you for buying this horse.
I know.
That is so cool. Okay.
And don't act like he doesn't take credit for it either.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they did a story about Smarty and me winning in the American Quarter Horse Journal, and of course Billy's right there in the pictures.
Oh yeah, taking credit.
And you still rope.
Yes.
And still compete. I mean that's like a fast action.
That is
slightly dangerous, intense.
Slightly dangerous. I still have all my fingers. A lot of my friends don't. But I'm cautious.
I love it. And how often you do that still?
Well, I've still got cattle at the house, so we can rope anytime we want to.
So part of your ride almost every day.
Especially like today, it's cooler than it's been this summer. The ground's going to be perfect because we had a smidge of rain, and run the cattle up, put the wraps on, and go rope.
So put this into perspective. How many other people are competing at your age? And I'm not saying age is just a number, right? But like, how many people are you seeing competing? Like, what's the reaction? They're like, "Oh, it's just Pam. She's kind of like invincible. She just does this," or is it like there are other people that are like this?
I would say that in a class of 70, maybe more than a quarter of them are over 50 or over 60.
Okay.
So yeah, and
and then what's the average age? Like
probably 35, maybe.
I love that.
Yeah.
You're just dominating.
But the thing is other than the number on my driver's license, I wear the same size clothes that I wore when I was 20.
Yeah.
I still have the same sick sense of humor, and I still have my own teeth. So other than the age on my driver's license, I don't feel.
What, do you work out, or is this like your workout?
No, that my barn is my workout. I wish I worked out.
You're lifting saddles.
Yeah, but my husband got the workout gene. I'm so sad. I used to go to a place called Optimal Force Fitness. They're on Foch and right around the corner.
Yeah, right down the street from where we are.
And where it was a 20-minute workout once a week and full body workout. And then they closed during COVID, but that was that's all the time I got. I got a full day.
Yeah.
So I got 20 minutes.
Riding horses. I mean, the core and
it's a real good core exercise.
So here's what I love about you.
I don't recommend that.
Okay.
I'm sure my doctor would like for me to have more cardio, but not going to happen.
Yeah, but so what I love about you, just as an admirer from the distance, is you're this juxtaposition of like TV polished, pretty, prim, proper personality, marketing and running this giant, crazy, one of the craziest music venues in the entire country, and then also are roping and riding. It's just this what is this? It's like this juxtaposition of all these kind of wild things.
Yeah.
So
that's what cowgirls do.
Not all cowgirls, but maybe the tenacity in the spirit of that.
Yeah.
Because
that's one of the things that they say at the Cowgirl Hall of Fame, that cowgirl doesn't just mean riding and roping, a cowgirl is really a spirit.
Mhm.
So,
Could you describe that a little bit more?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean to you?
it means taking chances. A door opens, you walk through it, not being afraid to say yes, even if you think that the answer should be no, but you say yes anyway and try it. You think about to the pioneer women, they were driving the covered wagons. They would stop and make camp, fix dinner, maybe birth a baby, and get back on the road the next day. So that's what a cowgirl is. And it's no different in 2022 to somebody that's not afraid to take a chance or have a heavy lift.
Yeah, and there's some bravery and then vulnerability because you might fail.
You might fail.
It might not go well.
And a ton of grit.
And a ton of
I
grit.
just feel like grit is the word. Yeah.
Grit is a good word.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of part of the juxtaposition having all these careers is you took some risks and followed your heart and followed your passions. Are you someone that just like do you have to think about that? Do you ever like second guess yourself, or you're like, I just do it? It's just part of
my husband says I say yes first and then think, okay, whether it's serving on a board or speaking at an event or taking on a challenge, he said most people think about it before they say yes, and you say yes and then find a way to do it.
So take us back. So you were born in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
Were you like that as a kid? Were you kind of brave as a kid? Like,
my mother was.
Okay.
And my mom would not allow us to say the word can't.
Oh, I love that.
If we said, if you know how little kids are, you want to encourage them and they say, I can't. And she would not let us say can't in our house. My mother never rode a horse. My dad never rode a horse till the day they passed away. But like all little girls, I wanted a horse, and my mom found a way to get us one. And we were, we didn't know we were poor, but looking back on it, we were probably the poor kids. We had one pair of shoes and then later one pair of cowboy boots. It wasn't like a closet full,
Yeah.
And so, but we didn't know it. We didn't know what we didn't have. And then, when I was 9, my sister was 7, I was 9. She got us these 2 horses, and I was at school and said, I got a horse. And this girl said, well, you need to come to some gymkhanas with us. That's like little play days, they have barrel racing and pole bending. And so, but we didn't have a trailer or a truck, but the neighbor had a trailer. And, but the first couple ones that we went to, that same girl that said, you need to go with us, her parents came by and picked up my sister and I. And we started going we didn't know anything. In fact, we didn't even have a saddle. We rode bareback for the first little bit of time and borrowed a saddle. Then my aunt gave my sister and I a saddle that we shared. I would come out of the arena, take the saddle off, put it on my sister's horse. She would go in. Then we finally got 2 saddles. And then we joined 4-H. And literally everything I knew up until the time I got a trainer 2 years ago, I learned from 4-H.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you guys own land? Were you kind of in the country?
We had 5 acres in Las Vegas, just south of the airport.
Okay.
And for no reason, there was no reason for us to even have 5 acres other than the fact that that was my mom, Sure, we're going to have a house on land, and so the day that she came home with these horses, when they dropped them off, we didn't even have a corral. My dad was out there. And if you know the land in Las Vegas, it's this caliche. I mean, it's just, he's out there digging T-posts and putting in railroad ties, made the corrals that day. I mean, just, I look back on it and we didn't have a shelter for them. It's 114 degrees. I mean, there's so much we didn't know. But they survived and we survived. And that first horse, that's a whole nother story.
What was your first horse's name?
Rebel.
Oh my gosh. What a great name.
And my sister's horse was Rio, and they were matching Palominos. And they had come to Vegas. Ironically, how life comes full circle. There was how there's all those themed hotels in Vegas. At the time, there weren't that many. I mean, there was the Flamingo, the Sahara. There was going to be this hotel called Western World. So they brought these horses in to pull a wagon up and down the strip. That was their marketing.
Mhm.
That had a big covered wagon that said Western World coming.
Yeah.
It was going to be a Western themed amusement center.
Uh-huh.
Where do I work now?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
A
that's
Western
right.
thing. I mean, it's
The
just like,
equivalent of that.
yeah, 6 years
So
later.
your parents obviously instilled in you that spirit of
Adventure.
adventure. I mean, to have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old be like, we want a horse, and you like, we don't have horses. We don't have like. Your mom just went out and bought you
$300 a piece she paid for those horses. And, that was probably a lot of money then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming they were encouraging and supportive,
Mhm.
and then to let you do 4-H and then help take you to all these competitions.
Until the day they passed away, never even got on those horses.
Yeah, that's what's crazy.
But I think that's what kept my interest because we had to feed them. We had to clean the stalls. We had to take care of them. My mom and dad, who knew nothing about them, weren't going to go out and be like, hey. So if you're given something that you don't appreciate or don't work for, it's not quite as sweet.
It taught you ownership.
Ownership.
Ownership and responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So did you start to get good? Like at what point were you like, I'm good at this. I'm going to compete.
So I was 9 at the time, and in 4-H, they have 2 age divisions, 13 and under and 14 through 17. When I was 12, I won the year-end high point in all 8 events. They had 8 events for them, and I won the year-end on that same horse Rebel in all 8 events. And I've got a big thing of trophies there.
And that's in the state or in the city or in the...
That was in the Clark County,
in the
Nevada.
county.
And then later I won. I was the Nevada State Barrel Racing Champion in high school rodeo. So
You were the Nevada State Barrel Racing Champion, and just with no like formal training other than just 4-H.
Well, once you do 4-H and you start going, that's the great thing about this Western community. Nobody lets you fail. The same thing in bull riding. You watch 2 guys that are competing for the same award, but they don't consider themselves competing against each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's with the animal
Yeah.
there is that variable. No one in the equine industry will let you fail.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want advice, you'll get it.
And that's unique. I'm
to
assuming.
any other sport, I think.
You would also. I found a quote where you were also talking about and you kind of just hinted at this, but part of like the cool thing about rodeo is there's this unpredictability of the animal. It's like everything else is like skill.
Yes.
But you strap on this thing that you can only control so much.
Yeah. And even with Smarty, as well trained as he is, and the success that I've had in these events, what I don't tell you about the time right after this reserve championship this year, I went in the next class and took the wrong lead. And I'm sure it was a cue that my butt or legs did but it's not, you're never on autopilot. Never on autopilot.
What does taking the wrong lead mean?
Okay, so when a horse when a horse lopes in a circle to the right, his right leg leads, or to the left, his left leg leads. And so you're judged on those maneuvers. And so
Gotcha.
So I guess my butt cheek went the wrong way and he picked up the wrong lead. So I went from winning the class before to being at the bottom half of the class. So that variable, and team roping, you've got 2 horses, a steer. There's just I think that's part of the challenge.
And your brain is like thinking of so many things.
Hopefully not. Hopefully brain's on autopilot.
Yeah, but there's a lot of
a lot of stuff.
A lot of like moving things to consider there. So parents were super encouraging. Let you do this. You started to get good. You started winning awards in high school. Were you? So did you decide this is what I want to do? Like this is what I want to.
I don't know that.
Is that a thing people think about? Like
I don't know that it's any different than skateboarding or tennis or whatever. You just
so you weren't thinking I want to make a career of it. You were like, this is just what I do for fun.
No, exactly. Because when I was in high school, I was modeling and I worked in the PR department of the Hacienda Hotel. So I would ride the bus after school to go to work at the PR department. And And that's how I got my money for my entry fees.
Oh, in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So you were working and then probably riding several hours a day too.
Yeah.
And what does that mean working in the PR department? What were you doing?
Besides being, a lot of and that's really what set my foundation for marketing moving forward, the education that I got, because I never went to college. So, and reasonably successful at marketing Billy Bob's. And so
I would say so. Are you a small business owner or an entrepreneur? Do you do marketing for a small business? If so, I have something that I want to give you, and it's totally for free. We've put together a free resource at 6appstorytelling.com/download. And it's the secrets, it's the tips, it's the tricks, it's the tools of the trade. It's literally everything we do at 6app Storytelling to help small businesses grow. Go download it today at 6appstorytelling.com/download.
But what I would go after school, I would either pose for a picture because they did all these silly promotions. And so I was kind of like the house model.
And did they like find you, or you apply for that, or you're like?
I applied for it.
Was that weird? Like in the rodeo, like I'm picturing this kind of like country environment, rodeo world. And then you're like, I'm also a model on the side. Like,
but you're in Vegas.
I guess
you're in Vegas.
I mean, you're in. To me, you're in the
lights
PR capital of the world.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't think about that. I mean, because I wasn't like in a big rodeo community. Yeah. Now the rodeo finals is in Vegas, but I was kind of like the hick girl that wore boots to school. In fact, now, funny story, I haven't connected with, but there's a kid that went to school with me that was like the big golfer there at my high school, Valley High. And now he lives in Lantana up by where, and we've connected via Facebook, but not in person. Yeah. But I was like, how do you even remember me from school? He was like, because you wore boots to school every day.
So no one else was doing that.
No.
That's what I find interesting is like your mom and dad didn't do rodeo. And like, there's this, I think as, belief that you have to either have a lot of money or you have to have a ranch to get into rodeo. Mm-hmm. You have to have, have all these things.
Resources.
But, yeah. And y'all don't have any money. Your dad's building a corral, probably doesn't know what he's doing. He's
no.
Figuring it out.
Hammer and nails.
Yeah, hammer and nails with some stakes, driving it through clay in the desert, and no one does it at your school. Yeah. And you're doing PR, and so
so after school, crazy. So I applied for a job. It was basically like a PR assistant, but I didn't, and the hacienda was close to where we lived. It's where Mandalay Bay is now.
Oh,
and
wow.
so, and it had a rearing Palomino horse as their mascot. And the lady that owned the hotel was she loved horses and Western stuff. So it just fit. And so, I would ride the bus there after school. And so, you should see my scrapbook. It's just crazy because every picture of me is in a bikini out of a pool. I'm 16 or 15 years old, and so,
And so that's
pool, carrying a shotgun when it was hunting season. They're the corniest pictures ever.
And that was sort of your introduction to this entertainment personality. Because there's marketing and there's also like now you're in front of people. You're poised.
Vegas is just different. Marty Robbins sang at my 16th birthday party.
Okay, how did that happen?
I don't remember. I just remember pictures of me with Marty Robbins. So when we were 6 and 7, we went to, my dad worked at the Flamingo, and we went to dinner shows with, Frank Sinatra and Wayne Newton. I mean, Wayne Newton wasn't even old enough to walk in through the hotel. He had to come in the back door. And so when you grow up in Vegas, things are different.
So you're around showbiz. And so you kind of, because that's the interesting thing is, again, like this gritty physical roping and riding mixed with I'm really good on camera and I've been on 1,000 TV shows. Yeah. So you went on to win the Miss
Rodeo America.
Miss Rodeo
That's
America.
a whole nother story. We don't even have time for that.
Give us the abbreviated version of that.
So also, in addition to working at the hacienda on weekends, I rode horses for a gentleman. Exercised his horses, and they had the horsemanship competition for the Miss Rodeo America pageant at his ranch. And many of the competitors didn't know how to tie a goat. And it's kind of like tying a calf. So, and I said to him, being a smart ass 17-year-old at the time, I said, I can't believe they think they're a cowgirl and they don't even know how to tie a goat. And he said, if you think it's so easy, why don't you enter? So the next year, so this was November, the next year I entered in May, our local rodeo queen pageant, Miss Eldorado, that's the pageant. And I won. And then...
And is it like you're riding? Are you singing?
Your personality, appearance, and horsemanship.
Okay.
So personality, yap, answer questions. Appearance, Western clothes, no bathing suits. Horsemanship, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I won that in May. Then that propels you to your, just like pageant things around here. You do local, then state, then national.
Yeah.
So in September, State Fair in Reno, I compete as Miss Eldorado for Miss Rodeo Nevada. I won that. And 2 months later, I go to the Miss Rodeo America pageant. And nobody was more surprised than me when I won.
Did your parents go? Did they like?
Yes, my parents went. And so, and my mom helped me make all my clothes.
Oh, so you made all your own clothes?
Yeah, made all my own clothes for the competition.
I love it.
And then I won. And that really, so I think the PR aspect helped me in my speaking as Miss Rodeo America. Then being Miss Rodeo America really set the tone for the rest of my life. That's why when 3 years later, when they started televising rodeos in black and white, no, I'm just, they called me and said, "Can you be the sideline reporter for this rodeo?" And
that's how you got into that
and that's how I
world.
got into broadcasting.
So you hadn't done that really before.
I had been interviewed. I mean, like when I was Miss Rodeo America, I had to do a tour for Squeeze Parquet, Liquid Margarine. I was on every talk show from Chicago
Liquid Margarine.
Yeah, they were a sponsor of the pageant, and so I was on To Tell the Truth. I was on the Johnny Carson show.
I had that in my notes. So, you were on the Johnny Carson show, and he interviewed you.
Actually, McLean Stevenson was the guest host that night, so Johnny Carson didn't interview me. But
and they were just so someone I guess watched your interviews and was like, Pam is great.
I think the Rodeo Cowboys Association, because I work closely, I was their ambassador, 3 years early as Miss Rodeo America, and yeah, I mean, not that there wasn't 20 other Miss Rodeo Americas before me, but when they started to do the first rodeo I did was live on CBS. It's like, can you do this? Sure. And then it's like, when I tell people that my first television job was live on CBS, they're just like, really? Because that's before there was just CBS Sports and everything else. It was,
it was like everything.
Big CBS.
Yeah.
And did you practice for it, or did you know? Like,
no.
You
were doing interviews like you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I know what I'm talking. You're going to react to what they did in the arena. So, and the Cowboys had not been interviewed before either. Now kids grow up with a hairbrush in the mirror practicing for what their winning interview is going to be.
And these are like they're not entertainers. They're cowboys.
Yeah, these are. And
you're having to pull out of them
because they hadn't been interviewed before.
More than one word.
But I'll
answers.
tell you what, a cowboy is not unlike a fisherman. They want to tell you their fish story.
Okay.
Or their re-ride story.
You get them talking about the thing that they...
And so if you ask a question that relates to what happened, you'll get an answer even if they're shy. And that's...
So at that point, were you like, this is a job, this is my career,
That's when I started thinking, this could be a career.
So at the time, it was just kind of like, oh, this is a fun opportunity.
Yes.
And then a light bulb went on and you were like, I want to do more of this?
Well, no, because there wasn't that much more of that.
Okay.
I mean, I think the next year I did 7 and then the next year maybe 12 because there were so few rodeos televised at the time. And then in 1980, there was this little fledgling network that said, we're going to do 24-hour sports. And that was ESPN. Everybody said there's no way they can fill 24 hours of sports programming. Now there's how many? But at the time, they even did lawnmower racing on ESPN. They were desperate for sports. Yeah, you look back at early ESPN.
And you were the
sideline reporter. Yeah,
but no one else did it. They were like, you just kept.
In fact, when you look back, because you don't know, it's just you don't know what you don't know. That was prior to there being any females in any sports. Leslie Visser didn't do the first NFL game, I think, till 1981.
Okay.
And so it was, long before to be a sideline reporter in a macho sport was kind of
Not to mention just in
unique.
general, like in the NBA and NFL, anything.
Yeah.
And so were you an employee of ESPN? Were you?
No, I was employee of whatever production company provided that content.
Mm-hmm. They contracted that.
Yeah.
And was it enough to like, this is a full-time job? Were you working on the side?
I was married to my practice husband at the time.
Okay.
And he was an automotive dealer, so I didn't have to worry.
And so you were just traveling. You were traveling around.
Yeah, to whatever rodeos. But there was, like I said, there wasn't that many. You know, now women can make it a job. There's, we've got a whole network that's just devoted to rodeo, in addition to what happens on ESPN and CBS Sports. But at the time, if it was 12 shows a year and you make $1,000 a show, you're not going to eat a lot.
Yeah,
there,
but you were good at it.
I got the answers that I needed.
But they kept at like
yes. Up until only about 10 years ago, I was still the only one that really did it.
So what made you different? What made you
authenticity? I never wanted to be the sideline reporter to meet a cowboy. Mm-hmm. My goal was not to shine a light on myself. My goal was to shine a light on them. Mm. And it's the same thing that I'm doing now with my program about draft horses, Gentle Giants, shining a light on an industry that's underserved. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did in rodeo. I mean, I didn't do it. It's a whole team of broadcasting. Sure. I just happened to be the person that asked the questions. There was also great commentators that, analyzed each of the rides. But I think that, and the girls that are doing it today, they have to do it for the right reasons. It's just like being in the music industry. If you're in the music industry because you just want to go backstage and hang out, you're probably not going to have a long career there before the light gets shined on you as a fraud. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the goal has to be to make a star out of your subject.
Mm-hmm. Kind of a selflessness.
Yeah,
and you got to be good at.
But I mean, I think it's the whole key is authenticity.
I would agree with that.
I feel like authenticity. There's kind of like another theme. Maybe it's rebellious because I'm thinking of your horse Rebel. A rebellious theme of like you hinted at this a little bit, but like the reason you won, or not the reason, but a reason you won Miss Rodeo America. Miss Rodeo America is because you actually knew how to ride. You were actually a real cowgirl.
And then most of those girls are too, but also, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I want to hear.
That's I hadn't practiced it. Like a lot of people, and you see pageants all the time. I want to save the world and cure cancer.
That's right.
But if they asked me a question, I answered it.
You were authentic
from the heart.
Yeah. And I feel like that because you were the real deal. Like you were a real cowgirl. Like you grew up doing that. And then you go into this industry and you're the first woman to do that. And so I would imagine you're probably not going to get a lot of respect if you don't know what you're talking about.
If I'm just eye candy.
Yeah, that's right. If you're eye candy.
And I think that the great thing though, and part of what contributed to my success and to opening doors for other women is that, that I never thought of myself as a girl in a different, because cows and horses don't know the difference.
That's right.
So when you grow up in that industry, ranching, you mentioned your family's ranching. I promise you, it's gender neutral. Mm-hmm. Ranching and the entire, ranching world is gender neutral because you got a job to do and you do it, and nobody says you're a girl, you can't do it. So I think that as to be asked to do the interviews, it was because of my ability to ask the right questions, and oh, by the way, the camera likes her face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but I feel like if you're in that industry and you don't know anything about roping, riding, anything like that, that's when they're going to say, "Nah,
fraud.
You're
right.
a fraud."
You're right.
I'm not opening up to.
Because many of the people that I've interviewed, I've also competed against.
That's right.
So
and kicked their ass.
So you're,
that's right. That's right.
So you're doing ESPN. You're doing this stuff. Mm-hmm. Are you still competing? You're competing during this?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, because I was doing shows on ESPN in '82 when I won the world champion in
Oh, so
Breakaway
so
Calf.
you won the world championship in '82,
Mm-hmm.
and that's also when you got the ESPN gig.
Well, I started ESPN in '80 when
In
they
80,
started.
okay.
Yeah.
And then you were still competing, still
Mhm,
riding.
mhm,
So
mhm.
were you competing in the rodeos that you were also covering?
No, not a lot. I did in the '90s a few rodeos when I started with TNN, the
Mhm.
Nashville network, because that was like Mesquite Rodeo, close to home, Oklahoma. So that was more regional. Yeah.
And so
Although, you know what? There was probably a few rodeos that I competed in, but I never had to, I never made the short round to interview myself.
And we're gonna turn it to Pam with Pam.
But I did that with Reba one time because I was doing a celebrity rodeo with her and I was in the barrel race and I won it. And so then she had to come present me with my buckle and she was like, "Oh, I'll just interview you." So,
that's so
Yeah.
awesome. So
so you notice how I name dropped that? Reba?
Yeah.
subtle,
Yeah.
casual.
just Reba. It's no big deal.
So let's go back to you won a world championship for roping.
Mhm.
So you were practicing this all the time. You were competing.
Mhm.
Can you talk about that? What was that experience like? Did you
Well,
win money? Did you win?
Yes, and during the time when I won the world championship, prior to that, I was competing full time in barrel racing because I really desperately wanted to make the national finals rodeo in barrel racing. And when I tell you that, because there were so few of these televised rodeos,
Mhm.
but when I left home in March in Phoenix, I didn't really come home for all practical purposes until September.
Whoa.
You head out to the West Coast and you
It's like
don't
a circuit?
fly. Yeah, it's you're at a rodeo or two every weekend.
Okay.
And
are you driving a truck with a trailer?
or a big motorhome with
You're
a trailer.
you're driving it yourself.
Mhm, mhm.
Do you have a team? Do you have people?
No.
Was your husband with you?
No.
So
no,
you're just
no.
by yourself
Mhm.
driving this.
And sometimes another girl will go with you. You'll compete with somebody. You'll compete with somebody else so you can buddy together and
so you're barrel racing and you're roping,
Mhm.
which is so hardcore.
Yeah. And then
But there's millions of
And
people that do
announcing,
that now. No, that world will not be surprised to hear this.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's surprising to me.
And I just what I do. When the day that I turned 16, in Las Vegas, and my dad gave me a new El Camino
Yeah.
with air shocks that I hooked up to my 2-horse trailer, and that night I drove from Vegas to Reno. That's 400 miles, 8-hour drive. By myself.
The day you turn 16. Can you
With my
imagine
horse.
that? Here's a car. Take this horse trailer.
Yeah. On an
But
El
that
Camino.
wasn't unusual.
Yeah. And so, yeah, because I always, whenever you talk to anybody that's in that industry and they're like, oh, yeah, I got here, 2 days ago, been sleeping in my truck, and they just have this mattress in the back of the bed of the truck. And I'm always like, how do you, and like, what do you eat? Like, how are you eating? And they're like, well, we won a lot this last rodeo. So we went out to nice steak restaurant and stuff, and then, oh, we didn't, we had to go to McDonald's this time. It's like, and it's just, and they're saying it like it's
that's
just
what
like,
happens.
that's just life. And it's just fun. And they're not thinking of, and I'm like, aren't you nervous? Like, what if you get a streak of 5 bad rodeos or something like that? You get a bad ride or something like
Then
that.
you find it. Then you find
you might
a
not
job.
be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what they said. You go, well,
you
guess
find
I
a job.
gotta quit.
Yeah,
I gotta,
yeah.
I'll stop
Yeah.
going to rodeos.
Yeah, luckily I had a real good husband.
Yeah, yeah. And so I do think you're right. It's like people in the industry are like, that's completely normal. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
How are you even shocked?
The fact that you're even surprised is surprising.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. And
I
think
just
that's,
can't picture. No offense to my wife. She's gonna hear this, but I just can't picture her pulling a trailer with horses driving across the country by herself. I mean, she's tenacious.
Yeah.
She could do it. I promise you.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I did it with the band, it's like, but we had like 5 guys and a tour manager and a guitar, and we were rotating and
Yeah. No.
doing it solo. So the 80s essentially was you competing
Yes.
and doing all this work
Mhm.
for ESPN and then the national net TNN.
And then I came here to do a TV show. Steve Murrin calls me to come here to do a TV show at the Coliseum, which is so crazy.
Mhm.
And I lived in Arizona at the time and got here, walked the streets of the stockyards with Steve
Mhm.
from Cowtown Coliseum up to Pearl's, which was not a dance hall at the time. It was a restaurant. We went up
Okay.
there for lunch And out the back door of Billy Bob's walks this guy with these tight jeans on, and his hair's kind of blowing in the wind.
Uh-huh.
And it was Billy. And so I went back to Arizona. I was separated from my practice husband, and I went back to Arizona and moved to Texas.
Did you go to a concert that night?
Went to see the Beach Boys.
The Beach Boys. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So had you been to Fort Worth before?
I had, but I didn't remember it. When I was Miss Rodeo America, I came here and did an autograph signing at Ridgemar Mall for J.C. Penney's in 1973. But I didn't remember that. The only reason I know that is because it's in my scrapbook.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
And so anyway, so you came here with Steve, and Steve's cowboy. He's
and that was the end of 82.
And that's the stockyards were just kind of becoming this thing.
It was not a scary
Billy
place
Bob's
then.
had been open for how many?
It had been open for a little over a year. It opened in April of 81.
So it was new.
It was new.
This giant, crazy music.
And what's so funny is people have asked me before, what did you think when you saw Billy Bob's for the first time?
Uh-huh.
I'm from Vegas.
Okay, yeah.
Not impressive.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So did Billy ask you on a date? They're like, y'all watch the Beach Boys together? Or like,
watch the Beach Boys.
Was it like a moment?
No, just we talked because, Billy comes from the rodeo industry.
Mm-hmm.
He went to the national finals as a bull rider. He had the world's biggest rodeo production company. He used to produce the Fort Worth Stock Show, Houston Livestock Show. When he did the Houston Livestock Show, I've got an ad on that I found the other day. One of the years that he produced that rodeo, they had the Jackson 5, Cher, and Elvis.
Wow.
So I mean,
what a lineup.
So, but I had met him when I was Miss Rodeo America at Fort Smith, Arkansas, when he was producing that rodeo 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
So when I meet him that night, it's like, hey, you remember me? Yeah, I remember you, blah, blah, blah. That was it. And then I had to come back the next weekend. I got home on a Monday, and a company called Transworld International, a TV company, called me on that Monday, and they were like, we didn't even think about it. Because starting in the early 80s, then people, because of ESPN, started to see the value of the excitement of rodeo as a broadcast product.
Mm-hmm.
And so then here's production companies that had no skill in that. They maybe did other things, didn't even think about they had their commentators, their play-by-play and analysts, but they didn't think about the interview aspect. So they called me on that Monday to come back that following weekend, which was Thanksgiving weekend, to do the Youth National Finals Rodeo. And the cool thing is some of my best friends that I rope with now, girls that I compete with, were competing in that. I met them at that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you flying? Were you driving?
Flying.
Okay.
Yeah, because I wasn't competing. Yeah.
Going to Arizona.
And so then I went back. So then I came back here the next weekend. I was like to Billy, hey, I'm back again. And then sparks kind of flew. He took me to Joe T's.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Joe, and then the rest was history.
Yeah.
Did you move here?
I went home. I moved here. Moved here during Stock Show of 83.
Of 83.
Oh wow.
And then at what point did you get involved with Billy Bob's? So you moved here to be with him, and he's the general manager
of Billy Bob's.
Of Billy Bob's.
And then I wasn't really that involved with Billy Bob's during the time, during the first life of Billy Bob's.
Because you were still so busy traveling.
Yes. And then in 80, then Billy Bob Barnett was expanding the area. He built, what is now our 81 Club at Billy Bob's, but that was a steakhouse at the time. Have you been in that venue across? Yeah. So that was a steakhouse, and his vision, Billy Bob Barnett's vision for the stockyards, is what has come to fruition with the Majestic Heritage Project.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Bob thought of this 30 years ago. He just didn't have the financing to make the dream a reality.
Yeah.
And so what he was doing was building this other stuff with the cash flow of Billy Bob's with no capital financing. And that was the demise of Billy Bob's originally.
Just bootstrapping all of it. And so he was using the money Billy Bob's was making.
And so, so Billy left in 86 because as the GM, he was like, I can't sit back and watch you take this business and infuse it here. And he and Billy Bob kind of went their separate ways. So we, as in Billy and I, lived on my broadcast income, and Billy worked for a bumper company, schlepping bumpers and sold insurance. I mean, we had a couple of lean years.
You had to get scrappy.
and then Billy Bob's closed because they, Billy saw the writing on the wall. You can't operate like this. So anyway, 1988, Mr. Hickman and Mr. Jury and Steve reopened the club, and they opened it, I think, in October, and by December they were already so far upside down.
Oh, really?
That they didn't know if they could keep it open. And Mr. Hickman, this is such a great story, and I've never told it before, but Mr. Hickman was at a Christmas party at Cass Edwards, and that's that whole Edward Ranch development. And he said to Cass, "I've got to, these two guys, can't run this club. I've got to get somebody that." And Cass told him, he said, "You need to call Billy Minick." And because of Cass, we got back involved in the club. And so Billy's like, "Can you shut down this bumper company for me?" "Sure, honey." And he went to work at Billy Bob's. Okay, so he went to work at Billy Bob's, and that was the beginning of 89, like January. And I think in March, I came back from Pocatello, Idaho, from working for ESPN. And he picked me up at the airport, and he goes, "You know about advertising. You can do this." And and the next day I started as the marketing director. And by the way, my budget was $3,000 a month because the club was hemorrhaging money.
Yeah.
And so
did that mean you had to stop traveling, or were you still doing that?
No, I could still do that, but there wasn't that. That's
kind of like the side
stuff,
hustle, weekend warrior stuff.
And exactly. And that's where I started the barter system of sending out tickets to radio stations because we had no money to advertise.
Okay.
But we had a great product. But if you're in Childress, Texas, tickets to Billy Bob's are premium and still are. And so I started that.
Wait, so tell me what that was like. Like, what were you doing?
Well, I came to work and I had a desk, which I had never had before. And I think that marketing, I know that people go to college for that and they learn great things about analytics and strategies and structures. But I really believe that marketing is like being an artist. It mostly comes from your gut. And I learned while working in the PR department at the Hacienda Hotel that if it's a slow news day, people will tell your story. So my theory is throw enough shit on the wall, something will stick. And that's still my theory for marketing. But that's how we started that. And that was, that was March of 89. And then along
so you're calling radio stations and saying, "Hey, if you talk about Billy Bob's, I'll hook you up with some tickets, and you can give them away, or you can bring your friends, and that was a lot of your strategy was, and you mentioned the slow news day. So were you calling news outlets and radio?
Yes, and Star Telegram, was a bona fide publication then, and there was Shirley Jenkins was the country music reporter, got to be really good friends with her, and she would tell the story, and that was the goal.
So a lot of your job is like, I'm networking, I'm calling.
Not unlike what I did when I was Miss Rodeo America. I would have to go into towns and say, "Hi, I'm Miss Rodeo America. I'm promoting this rodeo." I mean, it was the way we did it. Looking back on it now, realizing that rodeos have, marketing people and things like that. But
huge teams.
But they didn't at the time. I can remember in Grants Pass, Oregon, calling up the radio station and just saying, "Hey, you want to interview me?" That takes balls looking back at it. I don't know how I got that, but yeah.
That's so cool. And it's so Billy Bob's 2.0, did it start to work? Like, were people coming?
Yes, because
were you booking good acts?
Along about July, a guy named Ken Cragen calls me. Ken Cragen managed Lionel Richie and Kenny Rogers.
Okay.
And I had met him in Vegas. And he goes, "Hey, I understand that you're at Billy Bob's now." Yeah. He goes, "I've got this artist. I don't even care if you pay him, but I just want him to get a feeling of what Texas is like and a big venue." And it was Travis Tritt.
Oh, cool.
So Travis was our house band for that week there.
Travis was the house band.
Travis was the house band.
At the small stage?
On the small stage.
Just for a week?
For a week.
I love it. Wednesday
through Saturday. That's our, And then Bob Doyle calls, and he was like, I've got this new artist. His name is Garth Brooks. I can still remember, but one of the greatest things that we had, one of the greatest
I got
assets
goosebumps.
that we had is Robert Gallagher. Robert Gallagher joined during that time when we were gone as the entertainment director, and his relationships and the way that he treats people. There's not an artist that'll come there that doesn't want to come back just because of the way he treats them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say with everything, whether it's a TV show or a rodeo or my Billy Bob's experience, nothing is singular. It's all a team.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so the first time we had Garth, I can remember every Monday, I didn't have a computer. So every Monday I would have to retype the concert schedule. And so I still have the
On a
type
typewriter.
on a typewriter. I still have the type concert schedule from August 4th. Garth Brooks, reserve seats were $7.50 and general admission was $5.
Oh my!
And we sold 500 tickets. And he said on stage,
500 tickets was all he sold.
that's all he sold. He said on stage, I will sign autographs for anybody that wants one. So then he comes back in, another story from that same year, Clint Black, sitting out in the reception area of Billy Bob's, waiting to talk to Robert to see if he can come be a house band at Billy Bob's.
Clint Black.
And
was.
so, yeah. So there's and in the 80s, George Strait was the house band there.
There's a picture of you and George Strait.
From the 80s, but not at Billy Bob's. That was at Houston, doing a TV show at Houston.
Before he was famous.
Before he was famous.
I just love that Clint Black, Travis Tritt is your house band.
Yeah.
And Garth Brooks is just like
Selling
begging
500 tickets.
And for perspective, like Billy Bob's holds like 5,000 people.
Legal at 6,030.
So 500 tickets is kind of a flop.
It's a poor showroom performance.
Yeah.
But
was he good?
He was so good that the next time we had him in November, it sold out like that.
No, wow.
Yeah.
Was that like, it's like he was starting to like peak, get popularity? Was it, or he was just that good in Fort Worth?
I think he was peaking. I mean, his songs just got a lot of attention.
Played, yeah.
And so then that would have been 89. Then that New Year's we had in the same week, Clint Black, Garth Brooks, and on New Year's Eve, Restless Heart. And so I said to Shirley Jenkins, the reporter, because she wanted to come to Clint Black, I said, you need to see that Garth guy too.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, I'm not going to go out 2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
And so then I talked her into coming to Garth Brooks, and she's still to this day, Shirley still is a reporter. And she goes, thank you for not making me look stupid and not coming to Garth Brooks.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I've never seen Garth Brooks. I would love to. I've met Clint a handful of times. We play with him, and he is just so kind.
Yeah.
He's like, I remember the first time we played the Grand Ole Opry, it was like, knock on the door, open it up. It's Clint Black standing there. And he's like, hey guys, I just wanted to welcome y'all to the Opry. And I'm like, that's such a, normal people would not do that.
Yeah. But I think that there you go with authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
People that, when we talk about marketing, and we talked about, marketing being somewhere in your brain,
mm-hmm.
and in your heart, not something that you have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I think Garth Brooks, from a marketing standpoint, is a genius in
mm-hmm.
marketing. Him and there's a handful of people that just don't need anybody to direct their marketing.
It's a natural outflow.
Yeah.
So at this point, was your identity shifting a little bit, and like I am this? Did that sort of become your main thing? Or were you traveling as much? Were you still doing...
at that same time, and frankly, that same year
mm-hmm.
is when I got the gig working for TNN. So that Mesquite Rodeo, that was 26 weeks. So half your year, you're driving back and forth every Friday night to Mesquite and then back. And then shortly thereafter, in '92, was when the Professional Bull Riders Tour kind of started. It wasn't formed yet, but they started mm-hmm. having those events. But the first year on the Professional Bull Riders Tour, we only did 8 shows.
Mm.
So I would work at Billy Bob's Monday through Thursday, fly out of town on Friday, come back on Sunday, and then probably go to a rope. And sometimes Billy would meet me at the airport with my horse so I could go to a competition because I was still trying to make those finals every year for the team.
So you were
roping.
still practicing. So that just sounds like an exhausting season.
No, that's what.
Or just fun.
Every bit of it is fun.
Yeah.
That's like you saying, oh, you have to play music every night.
Yeah.
That's not exhausting because when you've got the resources in your backyard with your arena and your cattle and your friends like to come over and your husband does it with you, it makes it fun.
Yeah.
And Billy Bob's starts going well.
Yeah. And I mean, truly, it was that thing. It was that class of entertainers that came along at a really good time. And then shortly thereafter, there were, I think, 5 country stations in the market. It was crazy.
Because it went from like Nashville music to this is a
modern country
U.S. phenomenon. Yeah. And Billy Bob's is just this,
right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And the location is so perfect because we always say, Billy coined this term that, entertainment is kind of like hauling cattle. It's about routing. So if you're playing San Antonio and Oklahoma City, Fort Worth is the natural place to play.
Yeah.
And, he also says we get them on the way up and on the way down because it's not long after the really big ones outgrow 6,000, and so then they go on and hopefully they come back. I mean, we've been so lucky that, Hank Jr.'s come back this year. Miranda's come back. Kid Rock came and played.
Yeah.
And so.
And there's very few venues that size. It's kind of an unusually sized.
Yeah.
You have a lot of like 300 to 500, 600,000 cap rooms, cap meaning capacity. And then you have big,
huge venues,
sheds, which are like 10, 15,000. And Billy Bob's is kind of right in the middle of it. And I know, like, for me, it's like, as someone who played in venues, small and big all over the country, it's such a unique experience.
And now we've got the poles out of the showroom.
Yeah.
So it's really nice.
We were there last week.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Went to Josh Weathers.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So did you see where they took the poles out? Was that a pit show or was it seated?
It was seated.
Yeah. Okay.
And not having the poles on the stage was nice.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I hit my head on the.
Oh, I know. Well, we were like, hey, guess what? The fiddle player can get a full stroke now.
Yeah. But anyways, it's just such a like, I remember the first time I played there is actually the first time I ever got on stage. I think I was 6th or 7th grade on Thanksgiving. There was like a blues jam on the small stage with Robert Ely, who was this Fort Worth blues player. And I got up and played a song. I have a picture of it somewhere. And then I spent my 21st birthday there. I got kicked out.
You told me that story before. You remember when you said we've never met? You told me that story about getting picked out.
I probably did, but it was like legendary memory in my.
Yeah.
You were probably there.
Probably. I was there. I remember that.
So we used to go dancing there.
Before you were 21, or why'd you?
What's not allowed to answer that question on.
All I know is at some point I went and I was in a really good place. Let's just say that. And
as you should be.
I did 21st birthday. Went to Joe T's with my family, and then we went to Billy Bob's. But at some point I got a bar stool and I put it on the dance floor, and I got on top of it and I started conducting.
Oh.
Next thing I know, some big bouncer grabs me and yanks me off.
No sense of humor.
We would have got kicked out no matter what. That.
Yeah, but it's just. But I remember the first like official show we got booked, and I don't remember who was booking at the time. I'm not sure, but I was like,
maybe Helen or Robert.
I don't remember, but I remember asking about the opening band. I was like, hey, who? What about support? And they're like, support. Like the opening act is bull riding.
Yeah.
I was like,
maybe it was Gary Osier.
It might have been Gary.
Yeah.
It might have been
because
Gary.
that would be a Gary Osier answer.
Yeah.
The opening act is bull
No,
riding.
he was like, opening act. It's and I was like, there's bull riding? And I don't know that I realized that. Yeah. But literally, like, that's such a crazy.
That's how my husband started at Billy Bob's. He was there from the time it opened in 1981, but for the first 8 months, he only managed the bull riding. And then being a numbers guy, Billy Bob came to him in November of that first year, opened in April. In November, Billy Bob said, bull riding's the only thing that's within budget. You're going to be the general manager. And that same weekend, they had ZZ Top.
Oh, wow.
And they insisted that the fire marshal makes you, when you do like seated, like a pit show that's seated, you have to zip tie X number of chairs together so they don't become weapons. So there's all these seats. I wasn't here at the time. This is before I moved here. And couldn't serve bottled beer, had to serve them in cups because everybody was afraid they were going to become weapons.
Uh-huh.
And that was Billy's first week as GM, and he was like, it did not come with a set of instructions.
Oh, wow. Can you, okay, so what were some of was there anybody you were kind of starstruck by? Or you'd just been around the entertainment industry so long?
Yeah, and no.
Any acts you're like, I just like moments, someone on stage, and you're like, this was just incredible.
Oh, I'll tell you, Doobie Brothers.
Really?
And you wouldn't think I would say that, but their harmony
Great
was
harmonies.
so amazing that it still sticks with me. And I still remember the Go-Go's. They were good. I mean, I love all the country ones.
Were you a country music person?
Yes, I was a country music person for sure. But it's so funny that I guess the reason that the shows stick out in my mind that are other than country is because they were so unique. And because most of the time, from a marketing standpoint, by Friday, the fat lady's already sung.
Mm-hmm.
So
the ticket sale.
And I was gone. I mean, I was there Monday through Thursday. And so most weekends, and it's a common question, people are like, oh, you work at Billy Bob's, you can go backstage. I was like, yeah, but I pretty much don't. There are shows. I went to see Miranda. I love that. I remember Kenny Loggins in what we called Phase 3. We used to have the main stage where it is, the honky-tonk stage where it was, and then there used to be these roll-up doors halfway through the showroom.
Okay.
So it was meant to make it feel more intimate.
Smaller.
If you didn't sell, 1,900 showroom seats. And so Kenny Loggins was there in Phase 3 because he wasn't quite big enough yet.
This is before Footloose.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah.
Wow. So the 90s consisted of you still competing, traveling with TNN, marketing for Billy Bob's. That's a crazy
market. The 90s, the 2000s, and up until I retired in 2013.
Which didn't last long, apparently.
No, I came back in 2017, but now I'm really gone, mostly.
You came back in 2017. And how talk about that? So you retired. You're like, I need a break. I'm done. I've done my thing. and you're still hosting. You're still
I'm still doing. Well, so 20 years ago, I started hosting a show on RFD TV called The American Rancher. I still host that today. I shot 3 shows last week. I'll shoot 3 next week.
That's so cool.
And then in 2012, a gentleman named Joe Ricketts, who just happens to own the Chicago Cubs, started TD Ameritrade, but his passion is draft horses.
Okay.
So he lives in Omaha, and he called Patrick. He met Patrick at a Christmas party. Christmas parties have a common theme too, you see.
Yeah.
Patrick Gotch, the owner of RFD TV, they're in Omaha. He says to Patrick, you need to do a show about draft horses.
Draft horses meaning?
The
Clydesdales.
The Clydesdales, Percherons, Belgians, any of the draft breeds. And so Patrick called me, knowing that I'm his resident American Rancher girl. Can you produce a show about draft horses? And what did I say?
Yes.
Of course I did.
And producing is different than hosting.
Yes. And so I said yes. And he goes, I'm going to fly you to Omaha to meet Mr. Ricketts and see his vision. And Mr. Ricketts said, I want this to tell stories. I don't want this to just be event coverage. He goes, I want this to be like the stories you see when you're watching the Olympics. And so we've done that. I started in 2012, did about 28 new shows per year. Each one of them would rerun. That's a lot of traveling and a lot to do.
And
did that
you're booking the camera crew.
No, I was the camera crew. I shot it.
You were shooting
posted it and edited it.
How are you shooting it? Just put it on a tripod?
Yeah. Well, most of it is not me on camera. Most of it is the story.
Okay.
And then my co-host Katie and I, we would just set up the tripod, stand behind it, turn the viewfinder around, and do our on-camera intros. Then
did you know how to do camera stuff?
No, but I'd been around 7,000 camera crews.
Sure.
Most of them looked like I got them at the homeless camp. It wasn't like it wasn't like I thought that it was rocket science,
Yeah.
you know.
So you're doing
Our
everything.
first camera that we bought was a Sony Handycam,
Mhm.
but it had an external audio jack that we bought a Sennheiser microphone, you know,
Wow.
and
But people don't know how hard that is. I'm like a wannabe photographer. I love
mhm.
photography. It's like a little side hustle. But it's really hard for me if I'm at an event or a party or something where I have to be on and talk to people or entertain or to do. It's hard to do both. It's
Uh-huh.
like two totally different brains. And then video editing is so cumbersome and takes so much time. And you're editing it.
Yes.
You're going and shooting it. You're also directing.
Then I come home, take out the
Screenwriter.
SD card, stick it in my MacBook Pro,
Yeah.
download the footage, put it in a timeline, start chopping it up.
Chopping it up, and you deliver here's the episode.
I deliver it. I have to, when I deliver it to the network, it goes on. The upload is a Sparrow, but you have to. So if wherever the commercial break is, so I have to deliver for a 30-minute show. I have to deliver basically 3 segments. So there's, A, B, C, so that's how they do.
Your life is so wild.
I still do that, though.
I
That
know.
is so crazy. So whenever you were going through whenever you're doing all those 3 things, Billy Bob's and then still competing, still interviewing, is there one of them where you felt like, man, this is really more of my sweet spot? Did one of them feel like a passion or hobby? Did one of them feel like a job? Like, man, this really feels like work. Was there one that kind of?
And none of them feel like work, even to this day. I mean, it's like the only thing sometimes that feels like work is, putting the Bondo on.
Okay. So prepping yourself maybe for the camera or for the public.
Yeah.
If you had to give up one of those things, but one of the I'm chopping them up into 3 things: marketing, for Billy Bob specifically, but just marketing, PR.
That's
interviewing.
gone. That's pretty much gone.
So you would say if you had to give up one of those 3, that would be it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I'll always be at my core is a cowgirl.
Mm.
I mean, the thing that I'll never not have is horses. We live on 30 plus acres, and I don't know how a person can not, live. I don't know how they can pee off the porch.
Yeah. That's a good line right there.
And at some point in here too, you also helped start a record label, and had the live of Billy Bob's albums.
And that's such a great story.
To give us that.
Okay. Do we really have time?
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give us that, and then I'm going to pepper you with some random questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Rick Smith, just a little musical genius, another guy that didn't believe that there was anything he couldn't do. He was producing CDs for Pier 1 imports, elevator music and things like that. And a friend of ours named Buffalo Kinzer, who worked at Letty's, an American hat company. Buffalo's
great name by the way.
Buffalo's now passed away, but Buffalo happened to be in West Palm Beach on a boat with Rick Smith when Rick said, I'd love to start doing some country music. Buffalo goes, hang on, calls Billy. He's like, Billy, I'm in West Palm Beach with this guy that says he wants to do some country music. And Billy's like, well, come on out. So then Rick comes in, and to hear Billy tell it is charming. Rick walks in his office with, it looks like John Denver. Did you ever get a chance to meet Rick?
Yeah.
So Rick comes to his office, looks like John Denver with his little glasses and long hair, wearing an Armani suit, makes this pitch to Billy. And Billy's like, dude, the next time you come in here, you better have some cowboy boots on. And so unbeknownst to us, even though he lived in West Palm Beach at the time, his family is from Fort Worth. And so anyway, we agreed, and the only artists that we could do were artists that were between label deals, because obviously no label's going to say, sure, you're playing at Billy Bob's, you can record there for another label. So we were going to do Merle Haggard. He was playing on December 30th of that year, 1998. So we put in this whole fancy schmancy recording thing. And the first of the month, we were like, man, do you think we should practice this? Not just put all our eggs in the basket of Merle for the first thing. So we had Pat Green booked on December 4th of that year. So it was a test
Okay.
But it was also the very first, and it became it's still one of the greatest. That and Willie are 2 greatest sellers of the
I
Live Billy
think I
Bob.
had both those. I might have had
Yeah.
them wrong. The Pat Green one was huge because
Yeah.
that was right when he was just exploding.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it was one of the first live albums I had heard. And anyways, I still have like fond memories of that. And you could buy them at like gas stations and stuff. You go into gas stations across
Yes,
Texas,
yeah,
and they'd have
yeah.
Live at Billy Bob's.
Yeah. And so
And you were promoting that and marketing those.
well, and they had their team as well, but yes, if the Smith Music has their team, but the Live at Billy Bob's always marketed through us.
Yeah, which was you were running that too.
Yeah, but that's just part of Billy Bob's.
That's so
Just
cool.
no different than anything else.
Okay. Handful
And
of.
then Rick said a few years later, let's produce Willie's Picnic. It was Rick's idea to bring Willie's Picnic.
Because that was
to Fort
originally
Worth.
here, right?
Well, it was originally in Austin and Lukenbach and all those places.
And then y'all
but
brought it here.
2004 or 6, we brought it here and did it for several years.
And how many people were at that?
20,000, 21,000.
So
It was out in the field.
Huge, big event.
But that was Rick's idea.
That's awesome. Okay, I want to talk real quick about your style. Because I found a thing you described as bling cowgirl.
Okay.
Because you have your own, you have a great...
This is what what's so funny is, this is what I wear every day. This obviously not the blingy stuff, but this is how I dress. And I'll go places and people will say, that's such a cute costume. And I was like, it's not. Even in Fort Worth, I'll walk into a bank. That's such a cute costume. It's not my costume.
This is it.
This is it.
But it's like Western, but with some like...
I like a little
sparkle.
Yeah. When growing up in Vegas,
Vegas.
when I was little, I wanted to be Cher because she could wear rhinestones at the grocery store and nobody would question her.
Yeah.
And that's still my aspiration.
I like it. I like that. Vegas Cowgirl.
I read tell me what this is. I read somewhere that you were Coca-Cola's Woman of the Year.
Yeah, Coca-Cola used to be a sponsor of rodeo.
Okay.
And each year they would do an award for the person that best promoted the sport. And I won that. Yeah, I've got a beautiful bronze.
That's I was like, Coca-Cola's Woman of the Year. That's pretty wild. What was the best decision you ever made?
Moving to Fort Worth. Hands down.
It's interesting. I would have thought Nashville would have been where you landed, just with the country.
You've never heard me sing.
Yeah. But just in terms of like country and it seems like like TNN, the national network, is based
I spent a lot of time there, but there's no rodeos in Nashville.
But moving to Fort Worth was the best decision you ever made. What advice would you give your younger self? Like, is there anything you wish you knew?
Thank the Lord there was no social media when I was I wouldn't do anything different, but the best advice I could give anybody else at that age is don't be afraid to try it. Don't, that it's not an option. I don't recall missing an opportunity because it scared me. They say if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. So,
were there points where you kind of second guessed yourself at all, or what did you do when you had doubts? Did you have doubts? Did you have?
Not yet.
I love it.
That's crazy.
Was there any books or resources or things that were just really influential in your life? I read this, but it just impacted me in a big way or meant a lot.
I still tell people that this impacted my life. It's a book called by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, great book. I read it 5 times.
Exactly. I still give it out to people, girls that are going to be in pageants, Barbara Walters wrote a book too called How to Talk to Practically Anyone About Practically Anything.
Cool.
And that helped me, but most hands down, Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
That's a great book.
That is.
That's one I read every couple years. And it's so old and it's so timeless.
It's so timely. I know. I just got it when I was like, I need to go and get some of these. So I ordered them on Amazon. And I was like, will they be tired and all? No, it's like common sense.
Do you have core values or missions, like anything you say a lot or sayings, or these these are Minick things, and we say these a lot. Or I said these to my kids, and is there any like values or phrases or just? I mean, you talked about authenticity.
Yeah.
You talked about
Yeah.
not being afraid to take
Nothing
risks.
that I say, but the way that I live my life, I say it's the cowboy way.
Mhm.
I mean, I just think that, just the boards I serve on that help people is, there was a time in my life where I couldn't afford to write the big check to be a sponsor or,
Mhm.
buy the table at the fundraiser, but I could get my butt there and help them decorate and things like that. And I think that working and serving is important, but it's the cowboy way.
I love that.
What if you you're still obviously, I mean, winning championships this year. So but if you're kind of like, in reflection, if people are going to kids, grandkids, friends, coworkers, you're like, man, Pam was this to me, or she left a legacy of this. Like, do you have that? Have you thought of that yet? Like, this is what I want to be
haven't thought of
remembered.
how other people, but I do know that there are so many ladies that have entered the broadcast field that just, always comment on the doors that I open. And I think that that's so important. Why should you make it if you've walked through this door and you know the combination to that key, why not share it? Because there's enough room for everybody. And I find that not so much in the Western world, but in other, fields that I've been in, people are less likely to be forthcoming.
Yeah.
Or, I did it the hard way, so you got to too. And I'm just, I want to be remembered as somebody that opened a door for somebody.
Yeah.
I noticed that even on your Instagram, you've promoted a lot of like younger up and coming
girls.
Yeah, girls who are like kind of doing that space. I was scrolling through the feed
Most
last
of the
night.
girls that currently work on the Cowboy channel, I either helped them get their job or mentored them before they even applied. One girl, Amy Wilson, that's on there right now. I mean, I sent her resume to the Cowboy channel 8 times and said, "You need to hire this girl."
Wow.
I'm telling you, you do, before they hired her.
Wow.
So
that's really cool,
man.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And that
remember for, because I feel like that kind of I mean, that is the cowboy way. I mean, that you're describing, that is the spirit. It's a way of life of this grit, tenacity, taking chances, authenticity. Those are some of the words I wrote down from this. But you're taking that spirit and then saying, okay, here's how this is lived out. Let me help you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm hearing from you. To be remembered by that.
I don't understand people that are me people.
Yeah.
And so, and even going back to like your interview style, you're like, so much of us, I'm highlighting them.
Exactly. And I think it should be.
Yeah. That's special.
You look at what a good job you guys are doing highlighting me.
Well, yeah. This is fun.
This is worth highlighting.
Okay, this is my last question.
Make it a good one.
This is a silly one. So what when you go into a Billy Bob's, what is your like drink of choice? What do you order when you? I'm going superficial for my last one.
That's changed over the years. For the longest time, it was Jaeger. Jaeger.
Really?
And then when I got Invisalign, I didn't want to drink anything that was dark colored. So then I started on Tito's. So now it's Tito's. But it was
so
Jaeger.
We'll see you side stage with the Tito's. And you get to go. Do you catch more concerts these days because you're less?
No, I don't.
You're still equally as busy.
I'm not only equally as busy, but Billy's not very mobile, and I don't want to just go and hang out. And, be, hey, look at me party.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I would have loved to go see Midland last week, but I don't. And Billy probably would have gone to see Midland, but it's a chore.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
So what's next?
Yeah.
I'm going to Shipshewana, Indiana, the home of the Amish world.
And which show is this for?
This is for Gentle Giants. I'm producing the 6-horse hitch world finals. So, and not only am I going to produce their TV show there, but I'm also doing all of their openings for their big screens and editing all that for them. And then they do a Hall of Fame. So I have to put together 2 Hall of Fame little bio thing. So
And
I'll
you're
spend-
producing, editing, all that.
Mhm. I'll be editing for the next 2 weeks a lot. So that's that, and then nothing. I mean, our life is so much slower than it used to be.
Sure.
You know, Bill, for 30 years, Billy went to work every Monday through Friday. On Fridays, he would drive home, shower, and drive back to Billy Bob's and go in every Saturday night. I mean, till he was high 70s. You know, he's 83 now. So
yeah.
So now he's hoping he can get to the point from a mobility standpoint where he can get back on his horse. So but our life's kind of slow.
Yeah.
World Championships come up in November in Oklahoma City.
And are you gonna compete again?
Me and Smarty and Champ. So,
Oh man,
You're going for round.
I qualified 2 horses this year.
You did?
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you
Yeah,
guys.
this has
Thank
been
you
really
guys for
great.
what you do for the community and telling these stories. Because this is the coolest. Like I said, best thing I ever did was move to Fort Worth, and you're part of what makes it special.
Man, well, you are too, and we're appreciative that you're here.
This is fun for me
High
because high five. I've been an admirer and a fan for years, and it was just part of the reason I'm doing the podcast is I get to. There's people I've wanted to sit down and just hear their story and learn from, and you were one of those, and so this was secretly a chance for me to just wrinkle you down and get to have a conversation with you,
and find out what makes me tick.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, so this is fun. You're awesome, crazy, inspiring story. Glad you're here.
Thanks,
Pam.
Congratulations, you made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Stories with Soul. If you enjoyed the interview and like what you heard, please help us out and share, subscribe, and like anywhere you listen to podcasts. When you share and subscribe, it is insanely helpful and allows us to keep producing new episodes. You can always join us directly in the studio by watching the video version on our website, 6thAveStorytelling.com. Stories with Soul is brought to you by 6th Ave Storytelling, an organic marketing company building standout brands on the foundation of story. You're obsessed with your business, and we want to make the world obsessed with it too. Thanks for listening.